know that the person who co-invented a frequency hopping technology that laid the foundation for modern-day Wi-Fi, GPS, and Bluetooth was a woman? Her name was Hedy Lamarr. Yes, the actress. And she did all this during World War II. What a powerhouse. Welcome to the Scholarly Sisterhood podcast, a podcast that is building a stronger and more inclusive scholarly community for women around the world. This podcast is a platform for female scholars to share their story, and my hope is that from these stories, we can create a supportive community for women navigating the academic world. I'm your host, Anna Blankenship, and I'm glad you're here. Today, we're going to learn the story of Jen Munro, who's the founder and leader of ISSOS International. She's created this organization that's an international summer school for teenagers in St. Andrews, Cambridge, and Yale. You're going to want to hear the story of how ISSOS came to be. So without further ado, let's go meet today's scholarly sister. So Jen, I'm so excited that you could come today and we could talk on this podcast. Can you first just tell us, who you are and a little bit about what you do?
Sure. So my name's Jen Munro. I'm originally from Glasgow. I went to St. Andrews University. I graduated in 2003. Can't believe I get to say that. That's really weird. And I run a company called ISSOS International, which quite simply is international summer schools for 13 to 18-year-olds from all over the world to come to St. Andrews, Cambridge or Yale University to do academics and electives and have very much an immersive and experiential summer.
That's awesome. And it sounds like it would be just so much fun.
I think that's the thing that I'm very conscious of is, especially if you're 13 to 18, but no matter what age you are, you have this infinite amount or you have this finite amount of time during summer. It's got to be fun. And if we're going to do something that has academics and electives involved within it, no matter how you do education, to me it's got to be fun. And if it's not fun, these kids are never going to come back. And we've got a huge amount of returning students. And I think that's part of, we just got a beautiful email from a mum. And actually the stuff that she mentions is the social side of the summer school. And I think that's the thing that sets us apart from a lot of the other summer schools that are now in existence is, and even they will say it, they say when we look at ISSOS compared to what we do, we see that you spend a lot more time procuring and designing the sort of social side of the summer school. And I think that's what's really, really important. And I think that's where the experience part comes from.
Tell me how you got to where you are now with ISSOS.
Okay, so I left university, like most people at 22, 23, and thought I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a theatre producer. I was going to move to London. I was going to be the next Cameron Mackintosh, who has produced like Les Mis, all that kind of stuff. And in my second year of uni, I decided with a friend of mine to do a thing that I suppose in the UK we call Camp America. There's a misconception that Camp America is one huge summer camp in America. Everyone always goes, oh, you worked at Camp America, do you know my friend? And I'm like, no, okay. So Camp America is effectively a recruitment drive. They select people from all over the UK, South Africa, etc. And they place you at a summer camp in America. And I got placed in a summer camp in North Carolina called Tonawanda, and it was an all-girls summer camp. I was a wee bit sceptical about that at first. I went with my really good friend Alex the first year. I was really nervous. I remember day 2 thinking, I don't like this. I was sick, physically sick after breakfast. I was like, no, I don't like this. This is not for me. Where am I? I'm in North Carolina. I've never even been here before. I'm going to teach at a summer camp. Never done this before. This is random. Kind of had in the back of my head kind of thing my mum and dad was saying to me, we can always come home. Anyway, 3 days in, different Jen, like fallen in love with the whole concept of summer camp, fallen in love with all these kids, all these counsellors. I was like, this is the most amazing thing I've ever done. Long story short, I went back for 4 years. Alex only went back the 1 year, which still to this day she regrets. And I just fell in love with this whole concept. And I wasn't quite sure what it was I had fallen in love with. I loved the fact that there was this safe place for these kids to exist. There was a really healthy competition. They were very middle class kids, but, and this is why I always say to people about ISSOS, everybody always says, why don't you do it for disadvantaged kids? And I go, look, I'm a middle class kid, it's what I know. The thing I know about these students is that they've all got a story to tell, they just don't always have someone to tell it to. And it doesn't matter where you're from or what your background is. The only difference with middle class is it's just got a nicer face on it and we hide more behind the doors. So I think for me, that's kind of what I fell in love with about summer camp. And I realised there was nothing like that in the UK. We had English language schools, after school clubs, but we didn't have this kind of multi-activity residential summer camp or summer school. And when I started looking into it, one of the things that came from a lot of my students camp was, I'd love to go to the UK, but I've got to study for my SATs. I was like, well, what if you could do both at the same time? And they were like, that would be awesome. So I came back from camp, had decided that I just didn't want to go to London and become a theatre producer. And the really cheesy story, and it is a true story, was I was standing at the end of a canoe dock, literally having this moment of, what am I going to do? You know, I'm 23 years or 24 years old, and this little kid came along and gave me this wooden plaque, because you do like wood burning at camp. She handed it to me and kind of walked away, and I looked at this plaque, and on it, it had this beautiful quote that is now on the back of all of our training manuals. It's on our office wall, and it just said, 100 years from now, it won't matter what kind of car I drive, how much money I've got in the bank, or the kind of house I live in. My life will be better because I was important in the life of a child. And I went, oh. And I had one of those like Oprah Winfrey like aha moments.
Yeah.
I was like, right, okay. But I say that, I didn't actually know what I was going to do. I was like, right, I'm here for a reason. I love this whole thing. I'm going to do something that allows me to be in this kind of environment for as long as is humanly possible. And I went home and, you know, my dad was very entrepreneurial. He was kind of like, well, what does your heart tell you? What do you want to do? And I was like, I don't know what my heart tells me. My heart tells me I want to go back and live in North Carolina and be at summer camp. Anyway, I was writing a CIT program for the American Camping Association. I was supposed to go back and present that to the American Camping Association, and very long story, I got to Florida, they told me I had the wrong visa, they told me to go home and get the right visa, but they very much screwed up my passport, so I couldn't get back into the States for 5 years. So I came home heartbroken, ready to go to North Carolina, spend a year there as the program director, and couldn't do it. So I was like, right, okay. So went to Belfast thinking I was just to get a new visa, and they were like, you've got two options. You can sue the American government. I was like, I'm 25 years old, what are you talking about? Or you can wait 5 years. I can't go to America for 5 years? What? Anyway, so every cloud. I went home, absolutely distraught. Kind of went, right, well, if I can't go to America, this wasn't quite as soon as that.
You had to grieve a little bit.
Yeah, I had to grieve, had to get a job, do, you know, whatever. So working in a restaurant, and I said to my dad, I was like, I think I want to start a summer camp. And he went, a summer camp? And I said, well, no, because if I start a summer camp, I don't think people in the UK will understand what we're doing. Therefore, I think it will take a very, very long time to be able to like market something like that. I think what I want to do is start a summer school where the kids that I had at camp could come and study for their SATs but see Scotland. And my dad, being my dad, was like, right, okay, do it then. I was like, Dad, I don't have any money. And my dad, who'd been a very successful entrepreneur, by this point had lost everything. So he couldn't, you know, finance me, which was a great thing. So I was like, right, okay, cool. How do I do that? And he was like, make a business plan. So I was like, right, okay. So business plan was made. My mum came up to me one day and went, there you go. And I was like, what's this? She said, it's an office for rent. And I was like, now my mum, who was like, oh no, please not, setting up a company, here we go again. So I rented this office and I worked in a bar and restaurant to pay for the office rent because obviously we weren't turning over any money. Anyway, very long story short was I went to summer camp for 4 years, fell in love with this concept and decided I had nothing to lose. I was 25 years old. Let's set up a summer school. And it really came about through a lot of conversations with people. I came to St Andrews the weekend after I decided to set the summer school up, and I was chatting to a friend and she said, have you ever thought about doing anything with the IB? I said, what's the IB? And she said, it's a really difficult academic kind of track. Nobody does anything to help with the extended essay. I was like, that sounds doable, okay. Then went to have a drink with a friend and she was like, do you know the thing in America that's really big is we need to teach people how to debate properly? And I was like, okay, cool, let's do that. So all the different academics came about by like very strange and random conversations because I was not myself an academic or an educationalist. And then the very last thing, I remember standing in my lounge saying to my dad, I think there's a big market in English language. I think we'll add that. Okay, it was the last thing we added. And then our website went live on the 14th of February, 2006. And then we had 51 kids that very first year, and then it just kind of grew.
Wow. So about how many kids do you have now?
So not this summer, but ordinarily 620 something across the three campuses. Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah, it grew really quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had 180 the second year across 2 sessions. And the only reason we do 3 weeks is because that's what we did at summer camp in America. But weirdly, there's something around the psychology of 3 weeks where your first week you get settled in, second week you really start like going, ooh, this feels great, I'm really getting into routine. And the third week is apparently when you like fall in love and like have an amazing time. But if it goes to 4 weeks, some people are like, right, I'm over it now. So actually there's something really magical about that 3 week, which again was very random. It wasn't an intentional kind of thing.
I didn't know that. And I guess like I'm thinking back to the experiences I've had of 3 week programs.
Yeah.
And I guess, you know, I did fall in love with it.
Yeah.
And, maybe there is something to that. So tell me, summer camp, you have 3 weeks in 3 different places in the summer.
It does.
So what happens in the rest of the year?
So I would love to say we just sit on the beach and drink cocktails.
Yeah, that would be nice.
I always explain to people it's like tea in the park or a huge music festival. When you rock up, there's got to be someone to entertain you, there's got to be toilets, there's got to be accommodation, that kind of thing. So we have an admissions director who starts dealing with all the parents and admitting the students, making sure they're the right academic classes, elective class, that kind of thing. We have a customer experience director who has actually worked with us now for 15 years and was the operations director. Louise has this insane ability to create amazing relationships with parents and our subcontractors. So we've given her this role of customer experience. So she really makes sure that the students' experience, the parents' experience is the best it possibly can be from the moment that they sign up to us and way after they've ever come to us, whether they come back to us or not. We have an operations director who deals with all of our accommodation contracts. We have a lot of subcontractors, so we subcontract things like tennis, golf. We use a lot of different facilities, specifically in St Andrews. And then we have a recruitment director. So we have about just over 120 seasonal staff every year, a lot of whom return, some who are brand new to ISSOS. We did have a communications director. She's just left to go to Loganair, so we're currently recruiting for a communications person, more digital marketing now. Then we're going to have another position within the office that does a lot of general admin, etc. And then myself. So we spend the year effectively designing and changing and improving what we've done the year before and getting ready for that following summer.
Well, I mean, I guess that makes all the sense in the world. And I guess, because I think I've been thinking about this a lot recently with big events, is you really do have to prepare for it all year.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at something like the festival, the Edinburgh Festival Fringe, huge. I mean, obviously massive. But there are thousands of people on that team who work year-round, you know, to get that ready. I suppose when you look at something like ISSOS, we've actually got a small team compared to a lot of other summer schools that are the same, either smaller than us or slightly bigger to do what we do. I'm very big on relationship building. So, for example, the people we know at Yale, who we've now known for several years and we get on really well with, if they would like a meeting with us in March time, I'm like, let's get on a plane and go see them. And it just works so much better. Lisa's down in Cambridge at the moment, visiting Cambridge. And I just think, certainly after COVID as well, where we did so much online, it was just like, nah, get in a plane, go speak to them. Because you get far more from that relationship and far more out of that relationship if you meet people face to face and you actually get to know them.
Absolutely.
And they know us as well now. So I think building those relationships, you definitely get far more out of it. Definitely. Yeah.
So, still trying to figure out the best way to ask this of, like, we're both women.
Yeah.
And in the education sector.
Yeah.
Have you come across any challenges that you think men wouldn't have come across?
So, I always find this a really difficult question. And the reason I find it difficult is because I have never come across challenges because I'm a woman. What I have come across challenges or did was my age when I was first starting ISSOS. So I was 25 years old and I was a woman. But I think there was an attitude certainly amongst certain people at the university who was just like, oh, silly little graduate who's just graduated. Like give her 50 beds, they'll never fill it. And then we did. They were like, oh. And then we got 180. And then there was very much an attitude of, what can we do to make your life difficult? So, for example, we had something on our website that said, you know, St Andrews University, where Prince William went, right? Now we've got it on our Cambridge one, where Isaac Newton went. But the Prince William thing, they went, you've got to take that off. And I was like, okay. So within a day it'd been taken off and they were like, oh, that's right, okay. So we're not getting sales because we've said Prince William came to the university. So there was definitely that attitude which we had to fight against. But again, that wasn't because I was female, that was just because I was somebody doing something that was seen as commercial that wasn't the university doing it. I think the age thing definitely was a hurdle. The other thing that I found a hurdle, especially initially, was a lot of the places that you could go for funding in Scotland were for people from deprived backgrounds. But the age thing is the thing that definitely I found difficult initially. Walking into meetings with like insurance brokers, they were really patronising. Now I don't know if that was because I was a woman or if it was the age. At the time I definitely took it as age. And the only way really for me to overcome it was to just go and prove that I could do what I was saying I was going to do, and I could do it really, really well. And the business side of it, I didn't necessarily understand massively, but the summer school part of it and how to operate a summer school, I was like, I know how to do this. And nobody else, certainly in the UK at that point, was doing it. So I know I can do this. And there was definitely an attitude from a lot of my friends, oh, do you not think you should go get a job and get experience? And I was like, well, first of all, who do I go get experience with? Because I've just spent 4 summers at an American summer camp, and there isn't anything like that here, and no one's doing summer schools. So who do I work for? No. And also, I don't want to learn how somebody else did it badly. I just want to go do it myself. But the female thing I've always found interesting, because a lot of people ask me, like, what have you found it's like to be a female in business? Obviously, you're saying, what was it like to be a female in education? And I suppose the other side of that is I've never necessarily thought of myself as a female in education. I've always thought of myself as a female in business who works in education, if that makes sense.
That makes sense, yeah.
But I think there's 2 sides of education. There is education in its purest form, which is schools, universities, etc. And then there's what I would say is entrepreneurial education, or educational entrepreneurs, who are people who have taken education and gone, yeah, but it's also part of business, and merged the two. And I think then what you face is the challenge that mainstream education won't listen to you. And yet there are things that we are doing in a summer school environment that would work incredibly well in mainstream education, but the two won't speak. But I think a lot of people who are in commercial education, if you want to call it that, have given up trying to knock down the door of government to go, we've got something here could work. I'm not going to turn around to the government and say I know how to change the entire school system, but what I am going to say is that there's certain things here that are working because we're bringing kids from all different nationalities together, and they're telling us certain things about their school system that work really well. Why are we not learning from that?
And what a gift.
Unbelievable.
You said 80 nationalities?
Yeah.
Look, that's 80 different ways of doing school. Is that not the best research
Totally.
ever?
Yeah. But also we're working with teachers who are working in mainstream education going, the reason I love doing this is because I'm trusted to teach my subject the way I want to do it. I'm like, yeah. And you can still follow a curriculum. So they're getting the freedom to teach. Also, the way that we run a summer school, these kids respect these teachers. They're not throwing chairs at them. They're not, don't get me wrong, we get kids who are pain in the butt. But I think when you treat them with respect and you treat them... Now, I'm not saying that would work in all areas of education. We've got teachers that we work with that, are phenomenal teachers, but the kids they're having to teach and the situations they're being put in are horrific. But I think there is different ways of doing education where kids are respected and the teachers are respected, and there's a really nice atmosphere. I've been into some incredible schools who are not private schools, they are not IB schools, they're not international schools, and there is something about them that you're like, wow, what are you doing in here? And I think a lot of it is they're running what I would call a values-led education program, and it's worked in America in loads of pretty rough areas as well. So yeah, I think there's a disconnect between the 2 sides of education, which is a real shame. But I don't know how you solve that. But I wouldn't say I've faced many challenges as a female in education, but I definitely say my age definitely stood in my way. I think sometimes there's massive benefits to being a female in education rather than not.
Talk more about that.
I think education is naturally a more female-led industry. I think females are better at it than a lot of males because we have more empathy, and because, controversially, I think we're probably more emotionally intelligent naturally, and therefore I think that works more in education. There's a thing about parents trust females more than they trust males, and we've had that. We've got a female admissions director and have had for a number of years, and actually it was because we had a male admissions director years ago, and the amount of parents that asked to speak to me was mind-blowing. And I was like, is it because I'm a female or is it because I'm the managing director? But actually when I spoke to some of the parents, they were like, I don't know, I kind of wanted to speak to a lady. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not a lady, but okay, fine. I'm also not a mum. But they were like, no, I just did. And I was like, wow.
That's insane. Well, that's very interesting, and I haven't thought about it in that way before. Yeah, and I guess I'm thinking about that as well as, I am about to be
Yeah.
where you were when you started this.
Totally.
So what advice would you have for people like me who, are about to go out in the world and maybe specifically those who want to be leaders in business or education?
I mean, the easiest one is go for it. That is 100%. And I think when I was graduating, when I was 23, 24, I thought you suddenly got to an age where, like, you knew everything, like, that you became an adult. And then I really very quickly realised, the older I got to 30, 35. And then I remember speaking to my friends going, so this adult thing doesn't actually suddenly happen. It's just that you look older, but you're still a child inside. Okay, cool. And I spoke to this wonderful woman in business years ago. She ran a huge company. And I said, why did you sell it? And she was like, Jen, I thought someone was going to find me out. I said, what do you mean? She's like, I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just having fun. And I went, what? But you ran a huge company. She went, yeah, but I was just having fun. She was like, we started selling to hotels in Hong Kong because there was hotter men in Hong Kong and I like going to Hong Kong and flirting with guys in bars. I was like, wow. I think what we lose or we educate ourselves out of, especially when we graduate because we think we've got to be really sensible and adult-like, is a childlike curiosity. And I think if you can keep that childlike curiosity and go, there are no stupid questions, ask somebody a question, go and have the sort of gumption to do what you did and just phone someone and be like, so could you teach me about that? Cool. Learn from everybody. The guy that takes out your bins to, the person in the office next to you, because everybody has got something to teach. I think if you go and work in education, 100% learn from the students that you work with, because they've all got something to tell and something to teach. When I graduated, I think I spent so much time worrying and thinking about what it was I was going to do, rather than enjoying the first few years after I graduated and just being in the knowledge that it will all work out. You'll end up doing what you're supposed to be doing. So just go and enjoy the years after graduating and do what it is that you want to do. And then bizarrely, the stuff that comes out of that is the stuff that you'll end up doing. You never really know. And I think, my dad always used to say, just follow your heart. And I think a lot of people were kind of like, yeah, but what does that mean? I'm like, well, you know what your heart tells you, 100%. It's just sometimes your brain gets confusing. So to me, like, throw your brain out of it and go with your heart. Because actually, when you look at all the truly successful entrepreneurs or people in education or any industry, they're all people that have gone with where their passion led them. And that's why I think I'm in education. I never thought I'd be in education. I thought I was too stupid to be in education. But what I actually realised was, I'm in education because I became really passionate about what education could do for young people and adults as well. But education offered the platform to create this safe space for everybody. And actually, I'm now really passionate about education and what it can do and the results it can have and the experiences it can give people. But also, education is everything. This is education, going to a coffee shop is education. So I think looking at education in its truest sense and wondering what that can do, but going into something that you genuinely enjoy. You'll go, did you get that Monday morning feeling? So, what is that Monday? I've never had that, ever. And the girls in the office have never had it. And I always say to them, if it gets to a point where you don't enjoy this, come and tell me. Because then you're not doing something that is fulfilling. Can't remember what the hours are that you spend in an office, but it's nuts.
Yeah.
You've got to enjoy it. You've got to be working towards something that you enjoy. But no, I would say to anybody who has any remote interest in doing something by themselves, go give it a go. And also, do not for a second think that anybody who's doing it knows everything or knows what they're doing. They're not. I still ask the most ridiculous questions. I still don't understand accountancy. It bores the absolute pants off me. And I sit with an accountant and I go, no, sorry, could you go over that again, please? And they go, wow. But I think that's the thing. You have the certain things that you're really good at and you're really passionate about, and then find other people that can do the things that you're not very good at.
And I know you've already kind of talked on this a little bit. What advice would you give specifically towards the age part? Young people who are trying to do big things and maybe going into those scary meetings with, brokers who are looking down on them or anything like that. What advice would you give to those people?
I think if you know your subject and you know what it is that you want to do or you want to achieve out of going into those meetings, you have to go in there, and no matter what they say to you and no matter how they treat you, you have to believe that what you are doing is right. I think if you know your why and you know what it is you're going in there to do, you will have to go through some horrific meetings and you will have to be treated like you're an idiot or with a lot of disrespect. But I think use that, come out the meeting, go, well, that was awful, but next time I go in there, I'm going to go in there and be like, okay, look what I did, you know. And I think when I first started, there's a huge amount of people that said to me, oh, great business concept, you know, great business model, you should have 10 in the next 5 years. And I was like, no. And they were like, what? I said, I don't want 10 summer schools. Oh, honestly, and it was all men. They were all just like, oh, come on. Why don't you want 10 summer schools? You could have 10 summer schools, you know, you can borrow money and you can set them. And I was like, right, we set up ISSOS. And within the first 4 years, we were totally debt free. Why do I want to suddenly borrow money, which we can expand out of the profits that we've got, and have a really nice business, and I can have 6 fantastic girls in the office and not have to employ 40 people. We can work a 4-day week until February. We can actually really enjoy what we do. That is what I feel is a really good and successful business. But also, we know all the kids that are coming to summer school. We can actually have a conversation with the parents. We know all of our staff. I have a thing called chili night every year. And it literally started off, let's have a chili night at my house. Literally, I will make chili. All the staff from that year and any other year will come to the house, have some drinks, chill out. That's fine. And then you have 3 summer schools and more staff, and my kitchen is only a certain size. So last time we had 50 people, and my pot for chili is about this size, and I can hardly stir it now. And everyone's like, get caterers in, do it somewhere. I'm like, no. This is about me cooking chili,
right,
and it being like a family atmosphere, and we'll keep doing it. But you can't do that with 10 summer schools.
No.
And you go, nah, this is not what we're about. What I want is a company where the people that work in it are invested in it and enjoy it. And that we do have this actual like ISSOS family atmosphere and people are part of a community. And then there was people that when I first started said, have 10 summer schools, borrow, go for it. I said, had I done that 2 years ago, we would have lost everything. Because when COVID hit, we had to shut down, effectively sit in our house for 2 years. We didn't have a penny of turnover. But we had enough money in the bank that I could keep everybody on full time, pay them their full wages, and then start again 2 years later and go, let's go for this. It wasn't easy, but we managed to do it. And I went against everybody's advice who was like, get rid of everybody, just start again. I was like, absolutely.
But it was in your gut.
Like, it was in my gut. Yeah. I was like, this is the way we're going to do it. And I said, and now I can stand up on the stage and say the people that said have 10 summer schools, I would not be standing here with the same company at the moment. And I could see him go, yep, that was me. I'm like, yeah, that was you. So I think my advice to anyone, absolutely go for it. The only way to overcome those people is to some level ignore them and know that what you are doing is the right path, and that there will always be people who sit around a table, and I guarantee there will all be people who've never set up their own business, who have never gone out on their own, who will tell you that what you're doing is either wrong, or you can't do it, or you need more money, or you need this, they will all come up with brilliant, or what they think is brilliant advice. But I think if you know the way you want to do it, you've got to be resolute to do it, and then come out of those meetings and to some level use the emotion that evokes to kind of go, right, I'm going to freaking show you. Because it's the only kind of way to turn it around. When I set up ISSOS, I had a guy who I went to because someone said, oh, he might give you investment. And he literally turned around to me and said, I think this is a good business, but you definitely can't do it without me. And I went, okay, why? And he was like, I'll give you money, but I would want, what did he want? 40% of the business. And I was like, well, first of all, I don't even have a business right now. So that's point one. And every time he described why I needed him, I was sitting there in the back of my head going, you have no clue what this market is. You don't understand it at all. Because the customers you're telling me that I need are not the customers I want. And actually what ended up happening was I set up the company and didn't sell any of the shares. So now totally own ISSOS myself. My mum has 15%, my dad had 15%. And that was very intentional because I was like, nah, we're a small enough company to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And it means that we survive things like COVID. But I think there's also that kind of thing of where people will say to you, well, if you want to take this any further, you're going to need me. And I think you have to sort of sometimes sleep on it and go, let me think about that. Do I actually need them? No. And I think a lot of the time it's people, again, it was always males, who kind of wanted to put you down and go, oh, you're a wee 25-year-old, you don't really know what you're doing. And I think it's just having the confidence within yourself. I also think get a mentor. If you can find somebody that you like, who you would like to mentor you, in a way that suits you. If you want to run a stupid idea that you think stupid by somebody, go for it. Or if you even need to ask a question, like absolutely. And that was the kind of mentor my dad was for me, and it was brilliant. I was really lucky I had it in my dad, but not everybody has that. So I think if you've got somebody that you want to mentor you, or that you can think of, especially at the beginning, so that you've got that kind of support network where you've just got somebody to bounce something off of, then get that, definitely. No matter what you go into, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's going back to what we were talking about at the beginning. It at the end of the day, it does all boil down to people and relationships.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a crucial one to have.
Totally. 100%.
So what legacy do you want to leave behind?
Ooh, well, I think the legacy that a lot of people want to leave behind is I want to leave the world a little better than I found it. I think that's the simplest one. I'm trying to work it out so that it's a legacy company, so that it is a company that can exist without me, so that when I become too old to run it, I don't want to sell it. What I want to do is I want the people who are working in it to be able to continue it. We've just started the ISSOS Charitable Foundation, so I would like to see that grow. It's a purely giving charity at the moment, but that's something I'd like to see grow and give to education foundations, etc. At the moment, I just want to make sure that what we are currently doing is having a genuinely positive impact on the students and the staff that are engaging in it, and it is creating a lasting experience for them, and that putting kids from 80 different nationalities under one roof is breaking down some of the really important social, political barriers that these kids are currently facing, and that hopefully what we're trying to create is a international understanding that really is opening kids' minds up, and so that they actually realise that they're all connected and that we all live in this world, and it's not anybody's fault that this country is doing something just because you're from that country. I think the 3 weeks that these kids spend at ISSOS is something that is significant to them in their lives, and that we can continue to do that and grow it in a way where it has more impact, and that we create an experience that lasts a lifetime, I suppose.
Well, that's just awesome. And I wish you the best in that, because
Thank you.
It's just the coolest thing. My last question is, who do you know that I should interview next?
Emily Dixon. She is phenomenal. She's very Scottish. She's from Uddingston, but she's the head of arts at the American International School in Vienna.
Oh, wow.
She was our programme director for a year in Cambridge, and she was also our head of theatre in St Andrews. She is one of the most lovely human beings you could ever meet. She has some great ideas on education. She's very funny, and she is the reason I ended up doing a TED Talk.
Lovely. Well, Jen, thank you so much for doing this podcast.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and I hope to see you around soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Jen Munro's episode of The Scholarly Sisterhood. Check out the episode description to learn more about Jen and her work. This episode was researched and hosted by Anna Blankenship. And as always, we want to thank our editor Lizzie Walker and staff writer Emily Sanders. Hey, can you do me a favor? Can you share this episode of The Scholarly Sisterhood with a woman in academia you know? Subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode filled with stories, insights, and expertise from remarkable female scholars from around the world. The part of Jen's episode that's really stuck with me is that quotation she lives by. 100 years from now, it won't matter what kind of car I drive, how much money I got in the bank, or the kind of house I live in. My life will be better because I was important in the life of a child. Thank you, Jen, for sharing your story with us.